This is Rumble, and I'm Michael Moore. I've got a special surprise for you today. It's actually a gift that myself and a couple of friends, we've been kind of quietly making a movie for, actually on and off in between my last few films, for the better part of, well, I'm going to say close to a decade. We've been making a film in between all of our other work. And we finished the film. And while we've been quarantined here over the last, this is day 43 for me, in addition to doing the Rumble podcast, we have been putting the final touches on a brand new movie. And we have decided that instead of waiting to come out of the pandemic, instead of, getting the distributor and getting our theatrical release and all the wonderful things that you hope to have with a movie, that this movie is so important and so necessary right now. And we're so proud of it. And we have literally spent a good chunk of our lives on it, that we have decided to release it today. So in true Beyonce fashion, where she just wakes up one morning and drops a brand new album online on the internet, that's what we're doing right now. That's what I'm doing. I am releasing a film. In fact, I just hit send, so it is going live right now as we speak. It's called Planet of the Humans. Planet of the Humans. That's its title. You can watch it right now or after this podcast on my YouTube channel. Just go to Michael Moore on YouTube channel, Michael Moore. But there'll also be a link. If you don't want to do that, just click on the link on this podcast platform on the description of today's episode. The link is right there. The movie, which I'm the executive producer of, my good friend and co-producer of, he was the co-producer of Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11. His name is Jeff Gibbs. This is his first film, though, his debut film as a director, writer, director, editor of this incredible documentary that I'm so proud to be part of and so happy to be able to share it with you today, free of charge. It's all free, of course. And we don't care about anything other than you watching this and starting a conversation here on the eve of the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Earth Day is tomorrow. And we care so deeply about this issue of our environment and our planet. And we have been upset for many years and worried that we may have been on the wrong road to saving this planet. And so we started this project. Jeff really started it. And it's a film that asks some very heavy questions, that presents information to you that I'm certain you don't know. It may be a controversial film, especially amongst people on the left, those of us who, we, Jeff and myself and Ozzie, the producer, Ozzie Zehner is the producer. Jeff Gibbs is the director. We are, grateful for those who have spent years fighting for this environment that we have, fighting climate change and all the other things. But folks, if this pandemic, if it's shown us anything, it's that things are unraveling in nature on this planet. This isn't happening by accident, and we all need to wake up and wake up very quick. And we need to be going down a different road or different roads than the ones that we've been on during these 50 years since the first Earth Day. Grateful to everybody who has done what they've done, but also we've become wise to some of the things that have been happening with the so-called green energy movement that are anything but green energy and have not made things better worldwide. We need young people to take over, pick up the mantle that has been dropped by the generations before you that couldn't fix it, tried to fix it, did good things. We got a Clean Air Act. We got a Clean Water Act. There were good things that have happened, but it wasn't enough. And we have failed And this pandemic is just a little piece of it, of how we haven't been paying attention and we haven't been doing the right fixes so that we wouldn't be in the situation. And I got a feeling that what we're going through right now is just a coming attraction for what's going to happen in the collapse of this planet, of its ecosystem. This is just spring training for that which is going to kill us off. I refuse to be killed off. So I've been part of this film with Jeff and Ozzie since the beginning. And we finally finished it this past year and have been working on the post and all the other final things. And now this gives me a chance to present it to you, to the public, to present it we have a YouTube site, it's my Michael Moore channel on YouTube. And I met with the YouTube people and I said to them, what would you think? I met virtually with them. Obviously, nobody's meeting anybody anymore. What would you think if I released my next film that I executive produced? What would you think if I released that on YouTube? Would you get behind it? Would you help us? Could you make this happen like quickly? And they were so incredible. Yes, absolutely. So we've been working with these very good people at YouTube to release a film that I'm presenting, a Michael Moore film. Not one that I executive produced again. I didn't direct this. Jeff directed it, but to have this up for free on YouTube with the support of the whole apparatus there gave me heart. I've been heartened by the response to this. I am also going to be on Stephen Colbert tonight. I'll be his main guest here. This is Tuesday night, by the way. Tuesday night, April 21st, if you're listening to this later. Otherwise, you can go back and watch the Colbert episode on demand or however you watch old stuff that's already appeared on TV. I will be Stephen's guest tonight. And we'll talk about this and we'll talk about some other things that are going on. This is my first appearance on television in over 6 weeks. I have been in my own self-imposed exile here and have focused on this podcast as my main work, but also in finishing this film with Jeff and Ozzie and Basil here, the executive producer of this podcast. We have been talking for some time, and I've shared this with you since the beginning that we are focused completely on this podcast, but we know we need to do more. And there's more that this podcast can do. There's more that Rumble can do. And so we've been working on some ideas, some things that we will share with you in the coming weeks. And we hope that you can be part of it. We hope that you can support it in whatever way you can, but we know right now is there's not a day to waste on any of this stuff that we're facing. And as I've explained to you, the 3 viruses that are confronting us, the coronavirus, the Trump virus, and the virus that gave us Trump and gave us this pandemic and everything else that we're fighting and struggling with existed long before Trump, the way that we have structured our society. All those things that need to be fixed. We have to fix it. We have to eradicate that virus. We cannot come out of this pandemic going back to the same old ways. That's over. That is over. You know it's over. Take heart in that. Find strength in that. And this film, Planet of the Humans, will be my first attempt beyond the Rumble podcast to use our Rumble media. That's our site here, our main site, rumble.media. There's a lot more we can do. And there's a lot more that we're cooking up. And we want you to be part of it. So we'll tell you about it as we're doing the cooking and the baking. We'll tell you even before it comes out of the oven. Because this is the moment. You know it. This is the moment we say enough. This is the moment we create a better society and a better world. And then tomorrow night, on Earth Day night, on Wednesday night, we're going to do a live stream on my YouTube channel. It'll also be on Facebook and Twitter, most of my social media platforms, at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific time, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, a special live streaming with yours truly and Jeff and Ozzie. And you can ask us questions. We can start the discussion right now about Planet of the Humans and what we're saying in this film. What we've been doing has not worked. Those in charge have profit motive that runs them, and we are not saving the planet as a result of it. So thank you, Greta, for your inspiration. Thank you to all of you who've done what you can do to help save this planet in the years leading up to this. We haven't won the battle. We're losing the battle. We can win the battle. I am telling you, we can win this battle to save this great Earth, to save this good Earth. We'll be right back on the other side of me telling you about our underwriters. I can't wait to talk to you about this film that we just dropped online right now, Planet of the Humans. This podcast was created using Anchor. Anchor is the free podcast platform that allows you or anyone to set up and start your own podcast free of charge so that your voice is heard. It's because they believe in the democratization of audio, pure and simple. That's why I use their platform. Anchor.fm or the Anchor app will get you there. But first, let me say that I'm very happy to announce that we have another new underwriter for this podcast. So we're very happy and proud to have ExpressVPN join us. ExpressVPN VPN, if you are not tech savvy, stands for Virtual Private Network, and allows you to protect your privacy and your security when you're online. And some of the people in our last film, when we were working on the film, used this. And, we have to, when we're making a movie, especially the kind of movies I make, you have to be kind of careful so that the right or the wrong people don't find out what you're up to. And ExpressVPN it's sort of the premier group that does this very thing. It encrypts all of your data so that it's protected from hackers and anybody else that's trying to possibly check up on you. And I'm so happy that they've decided that they want to underwrite this show so that this podcast can come to you. And I thank them for doing this. In return, they are going to have this offer. If you sign up for like a 1-year thing with them, they'll make the first 3 months free when you go to them at expressvpn.com and go /rumble when you type that in, and you'll get 3 months free. expressvpn.com/rumble. Okay, we are back, and we have just released online a surprise film for all of you out there. A film that I've been working on as executive producer, along with 2 other people, the writer, director, editor, chief camera person. I think you did sound too. The amazing Jeff Gibbs. This is his first film. It's Planet of the Humans. And just seconds ago, we released it on my YouTube channel. If you go to the Michael Moore YouTube channel, you will find Planet of the Humans. And this film is really been years in the making. Jeff has been a number of things throughout his life in terms of his work life, but he has been a lifelong environmentalist. And in addition to that, he has been the co-producer on 3 of my films, including Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11. And he's also a film composer. He scores movies. and which he's done for me. But this idea came up, I think, many years ago in Jeff's head, that we needed to look at this whole idea of the environment and what we're doing to save it, to make it better, differently. And he and I and our third guest, or second guest actually, on the episode today, Ozzie Zehner. Ozzie is the producer of this film and also wrote an amazing book called Green Illusions. And we are going to jump right into this. And I know for some people listening to this, you're going to hear things that usually are not discussed anytime around Earth Day, if ever. And we, the three of us, feel very strongly about why this film was made and what we hope it will do. And we ask you to put on your critical thinking caps right now as we get into this discussion of how concerned we are about the state of this planet, and how what we've been doing has done little or nothing to take us away from the edge of the cliff that we're on. And we just thought, in releasing this film, and it's free, by the way, at least for the first month here, it's free. It's a gift from us to you, because we want you to watch this, because we're living through this god-awful pandemic right now. And if this is just a taste of what the world has to deal with when it comes to how nature interacts with us, what we have to tell you on this podcast today is going to, I hope, make you even more committed to realizing that we have been on the wrong road. We are on the wrong road. And we welcome this discussion. We need for this discussion to happen, because if we continue, we're going to be totally up the creek here, folks. I think you already know this anyways, but let me welcome Jeff Gibbs and Ozzie Zehner to Rumble here today. Welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Michael.
So let's just dive right into it. Jeff, how serious is the tragedy, I guess, the oncoming tragedy, the ongoing tragedy that we're facing right now with this planet, with the environment? Where are we at? How did we get here? And how do we swerve to avoid that cliff that I believe, and I think you believe, we're in the process of going over?
Wow. How did we get here? We got here because there's so much momentum to who we are as humans. It's very difficult to change course. And then suddenly we change course in a day or a week, like we did with this pandemic. So, we've been on this course for thousands of years. But specifically right now, it's the eve of Earth Day. And, in my lifetime, we're the Earth Day generation, wouldn't you say?
Yes, we were the first Earth Day. You and I were sophomores in high school.
Yeah, I remember my biology teacher talking about Earth Day, and I thought, wow, an adult actually talked about the environment in my conservative side of town, where people didn't talk about such things. And really, I started to, as we all started to live our life and got different careers and worked on different things. And I always remained an environmentalist. I tried to, live simply and live in the woods, grow my own food, recycle, go to the protests, and I began to write about the environment and to think about it as I got older. But just something kind of snapped quite a while ago now. Maybe it was even before Katrina, where I realized that during my lifetime, things weren't getting better. They were getting worse. And I just looked around and thought, why are we acting like everything's normal? Nothing's normal. And I also thought to myself, someday there's going to be an event that we can't predict that's going to change everything. And the question is, will it change everything in a way that we can become aware and recover, or change everything in a way that collapse is inevitable and unavoidable? And lo and behold, right when we're releasing the movie, it seems like that time has arrived when we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know whether we're going to recover from this. We'd like to believe we are. we also don't know whether we're going to wake up from the pandemic. So that edge that I feared is here, and what are we going to do with it? But the thing that's driven me is as I really started to explore the state of the planet and the state of biodiversity, not just the climate, but the pollution that circles the globe and all the tripwires. We don't even know what all these toxins that we've circulated around the planet are going to do. All the plastics. I just began to realize that it's just so much worse than we think. And because our lives just have a certain momentum to them, we just go on day by day by day. So this horrible tragedy that we're having now, which I wish didn't happen, I wish wasn't here, and none of us know who's going to be affected by it. We're all being affected by it. None of us know who's going to survive this. But this is our one chance to get this right. And the movie is really the story of my discovering we didn't get it right. And it's easy enough to look at the other side and see how they're crazy. I mean, they definitely are crazy. Job one is to get rid of the people that are basically, I think the right is suicidal. But I think we also have our own blind spots. And if we don't correct our own blind spots, I think there's no hope at all. There may be only a little hope if we do, but I'll take that chance. So really, it's a life.
Yeah, when you say our blind, meaning on this side of the political fence, not on
environmentalists, right. We on the left.
Right. Because as you point out in this film, Planet of the Humans, that the electric car is not going to save us. In fact, actually, it may be contributing to our demise. And you go through this whole list of things in the film that I think most people listening to this would think, well, no, there are some things that have gotten better, solar energy, wind energy, electric cars. Isn't that Elon Musk guy doing something good? And then there's all these environmental groups that have, worked very hard but in the movie, you say no. I mean, you call BS on this stuff, starting with things like solar and wind and the electric car and all that. Can you just take a minute or two and explain to people who otherwise up until this moment thought, well, yes, the environment is in bad shape and there's all this climate emergency going on, but we do have a lot of work happening with green energy and these things that are going to save us.
Yeah, the thing that we've kept, one of our blind spots is we've kept ourselves, just like you don't want to understand how your hot dog is made, right? You really don't want to know. You don't want to see that.
Don't add that to the show. Don't tell us. We don't want to know. Okay.
But
yes, we don't want to know what's in the hot dog. But are you telling? So you're what you seem to explain, and I've seen the film, but I'm like, you really do strip the hot dog down in terms of what's in that solar panel or what's in that wind turbine or that electric car.
Yeah, the planet doesn't want us to have a billion of anything. So we've got how many billions of normal internal combustion engine cars flying down the highways. And somehow we imagine it's going to be green to have a billion and then another billion and then another billion chunks of steel and aluminum and copper and rare earth metals and cobalt in the form of an electric car screaming down the highway. Somehow those vehicles are just going to magically appear from nothing. Yeah. So even if they were charged by
they are
renewable energy.
But at least the electric car isn't using fossil fuel. That's not going to the gas station. That's what we're told.
Yeah, maybe Ozzie can chime in here. The electric car doesn't use any fossil fuels, right, Ozzie?
Well, see, the trick is a little bit of a shell game, because when you have an electric car, you see this thing going down the highway. You don't see anything coming out of its tailpipe, and that's where we're used to looking for emissions. What you don't realize is the reason electric cars are a little pricey up front is because they're using an incredible amount of fossil fuel to create the thing in the first place. So over the lifespan of the car, at least according to the National Academy's studies, which have done the largest research on this, you end up basically back where you began, because you're building things out of aluminum, and aluminum uses roughly 8 times the energy to create as steel. And so you have these trade-offs that are occurring behind the scenes, end up accruing in the cost, and you end up back in the same position where you're having something with a large environmental footprint. It takes a lot of energy to move something down a road at 55 miles an hour. And you don't get around that with an electric car. You just get a different set of side effects.
And here now we've spent several minutes talking about the electric car. And what is the electric car? It's just an alternative profit center for capitalism, for this giant industrial machine that's destroying the planet. And it's distracted us from talking about what we really need to talk about, which is, when are we going to stop having so many cars to begin with? When are we going to stay home more? When are we going to slow this juggernaut that's destroying the planet? Since Earth Day, our human population has doubled. Since Earth Day, our global economy has increased by 4 times. And alongside of that, wildlife has declined by 50%. You can look at any species and you see that there's this collapse curve that kind of parallels the rise in humans. We're now seeing the demise of bees and butterflies. The last gorillas and orangutans and chimpanzees are among us. The last wild ones, and as our human presence expands, all of these things decline. 90% of the fish in the ocean are gone. But do you hear any, we're trying to fix things piecemeal. Mm-hmm. And so every minute we spend talking about, when are we going to get more electric cars? When are we going to get more solar panels? That's just the story of more. And as you see in the film, solar panels also have the same kind of blind spot where, how long did it take us, Ozzie, to figure out how solar panels were made? You can't even look it up online.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
It's just glass, right? It's just some glass things on the roof, right?
I don't want to give away too much from the film now, so we have to be careful.
But you should, now that Jeff raised it, we should, take a second and explain that, because I think that the public is kept somewhat ignorant in order to be kept hopeful, and because hope will translate into the, you explain this in the film, the profit centers that we call green energy.
Yeah, let's say what's in the film, because what the hell, we don't know if we're even going to have a YouTube, we don't know if we're going to have an internet in a month or a week or whatever. Right. So let's just go for it.
Yeah. Just that you may just want to cut and paste the link if you want to go to the YouTube channel. But this is, you're absolutely right. In this pandemic, anything can happen right now.
So I first wondered whether, I thought, well, they come from glass, they come from sand. Where's the sand come from? They must use a lot of sand. So I spent months and months trying to figure out where the sand was, because I knew there was a solar panel factory in Michigan. So finally I got a hold of Ozzie and said, do you have any idea how these things are made? And then I don't know what you went through trying to find out, Ozzie.
Gosh, it took a while, because it was it was a journey, because we thought, I wonder if they're getting the sand from the sand dunes, because, they're in Michigan. And so we started looking into it, and the deeper and deeper we got, we found out, oh no, it's much worse than that. and we discovered they don't make it from sand at all.
Yeah, they use rare mined quartz, and from one special mine in North America, they ship it often halfway across the world to be smelted with coal, and you can't even make a solar panel without coal. So that's one of the mind-blowing awarenesses that you'll see in the film, is that every single thing in our lives, especially high technology like solar panels, wind turbines, electric cars, uses vast amounts of fossil energy, especially carbon. You can't make these things without carbon. So when I hear people say they're carbon-free, I just can't even imagine. I wonder, do they know? They don't even know how these things are made. Or if they do know.
It's not easy to find this out. And it's kind of in our society, it's a forbidden knowledge too, because if you did know that solar cells and wind turbines were built from carbon and fossil fuels, and if you really came to grapple with that, then it's kind of like saying, well, your legacy is pointless unless you overlook these observations, which has been very convenient for us to do, because it's easy to just kind of avoid that or put it out of your mind, or say, I realize it takes a little bit of, energy to create it, but then you get this free energy for a really long time afterward. And that's a seductive story. But it's just a story, and it really isn't the case.
But we feel good when we're going down the highway and we see a wind farm and we think, oh, that's so beautiful. We're going to be saved. And then, but what we don't see, and what you point out in the film, is that oftentimes across the road from the wind farm or from the solar panel farm, whether it's across the road or someplace else within the energy system, these things can't survive without having a fossil fuel plant going nonstop, because for just common sense reasons, you don't need to be a scientist to figure this out, the wind isn't always blowing and the sun isn't always out. So as a backup, there has to be a fossil fuel plant when they build these things. Would you explain that to people? Because this was news to me. I did just think, well, the wind is blowing and there's the windmill turning and it's free energy and it's going into the grid somewhere.
Yeah, when I first read Ozzie's book, I noticed a chart that, because we all know that the wind is variable and the sun's variable, and we have this thing every day called night, in which the sun doesn't work. In Michigan, we have this thing called November, December, January, February, March, where there's hardly any sun.
You're being kind there. It's April, May.
April now. It's dark and cloudy here, but
August.
I
September.
saw this chart that showed how much variable renewable energy could be in a single day. Was that solar or wind, Ozzie? I can't remember, but just within nanoseconds and minutes, there can be fluctuations that really affect the grid. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's both in solar and wind. There's quite a bit of flexibility in how much they're putting out at any time, or unpredictability, I should say.
And so they have to keep a fossil fuel energy plant going. They can't just rely just on the solar panels, just on the wind turbines, right? I mean, it has to, because the system can't go down.
Yeah, there's nowhere in the world that we found that that's running on solar and wind, despite all the promise. It's another one of those shell games.
Solar wind on its own.
On its own.
Where it's running on its own without the fossil fuel backup.
Yeah, the fundamental problem that you get and the challenge that we have, if you're looking at things like wind and solar output, is that you're using a lot of fossil fuel to create these technologies, and they are very high tech technologies. They use the most destructive industrial processes that we've ever created as humans to create these. They're basically like, if you look at a solar panel, it's basically just like plastering your roof with iPhones. It's the same types of materials, the same types of scary things that we know of that go into our electronics. And once we spend all of that energy to create them, what we get back out of them is a very low quality energy.
Yeah, let me say a couple things just in preface too. I'm scared to death today. I'm really scared. I mean, of course, I'm nervous the movie's is out, and I'm really curious to see how people react and all that normal human stuff. But oil just went into negative territory. The last time oil prices collapsed, we went into the Great Recession, but now it's actually less than zero. So we've got the pandemic and this incipient crisis, and it's a very frightening day. But what I wanted to say about the one of the problems with discussing this, and the reason Ozzie wrote a book rather than just a paper, and I made a movie rather than just a bunch of videos, is that you have to step back and look at the whole thing. So you can rationalize any one thing. Oh, they're going to work out a way to deal with the variability of the wind. Oh, they're going to work out a way to make batteries or electric cars more, out of less toxic materials. But we got to step back and look. We have to step back and look at the whole universe of industrial processes that brings us solar panels, wind turbines, electric cars, that creates the power lines that connects them, that creates the backup energy sources. And it's all just adding up. Ozzie once pointed out to me that when we got nuclear power, we didn't give up fossil fuels. We just added the nuclear power. And when we got fossil fuels, we didn't stop burning trees for energy. We kept burning trees. So this all just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. If you ask the question, does the planet want us to build millions of square miles of solar panels? Does it want us to carve up millions of square miles of desert or forest or prairie to plaster our technology across it? What does that have to do with saving the planet? that's just a way of saving our lifestyles. And it's not even saving our lifestyles. It's just something we cling to. Other people might cling to religion. We cling to this illusion that we've got green technology. And I've got to say, one of the things that propels me is the awareness that, how did hippies and environmentalists and people like me, because I once thought that solar panels were one of the answers, how did we ever get convinced that this technology was green? We're not convinced our iPhone is green, but yes, somehow we've gotten convinced a solar panel is green. So, but that's why it's really important that people see the movie, because you've got to get a sense of the whole thing that we're doing in the name of going green. And it's just another form of destruction of the planet.
And that's what I really like about Jeff's film. I don't know how you feel about this, Michael, but it really feels like you're binge watching a true crime story. Like it feels like you watch the whole thing at once. And I think it's just thrilling to watch, because Jeff really lays bare this incredible amount of original research. And I think that's why we have seen in the little test screenings that we've had so far that it has just really affected audiences. And I think that's why, because there's a hunger out there for that kind of journalism.
Well, because we want to be told the truth, even if the truth is difficult to swallow.
Yeah.
And this truth, we were talking about this, beforehand, about doing this release of the film, of Planet of the Humans, on this day, the day before Earth Day, but also it's during this pandemic. And it's like I said to you guys, this is exactly when we should be watching this, because I think we all instinctively know it's not just this one virus, that there are so many things that are afoul regarding the balance in this world, in nature, obviously politically, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the serious, out of whack way things are turning out. And we've been seeing little red flags about this, some big red flags. And I can't think of a better time than right now, when we're all sort of reconsidering and wondering, how did we get here? How is it that tens of thousands of people are dying right now? And what else are we not thinking of? I mean, my brain, I hope everybody's brain's big enough to handle more than one thought right now, because if we don't think about the other things that are coming down the pike, we're doomed. And I refuse to be doomed. So I can't think of a better time. And I asked you guys if we could do this, if we could release this, and let's release it, for free. Let's make it easy for people to go to YouTube and watch this masterpiece of a documentary, unlike anything I had ever seen. And Jeff, Ozzie's right. When we watch this, and we've all watched it a number of times, and we've watched it with those test audiences, and we did a kind of a work in progress screening at my film festival this past year, and it's so, people are at the end of this film riveted. They are stuck in their seats, just sitting there with mouths open. Basically, they cannot believe that not the right wing, but people on our side have been on the wrong road. And not necessarily for nefarious reasons, but just because they just were wrong. And then some of them decided they could start making a profit, making money off using that word green. And Jeff, boy, when you just said that right now about being scared today about all the news of today, both the pandemic, but also this whole thing with that essentially oil, the price of oil is free. It's like, I hope Planet Earth wasn't listening today to the news when they heard that yesterday, actually, because that's the last thing the planet needs. But this is out of control. And,
well, let me explain why that's a weird problem that we don't understand. If we just shut everything down, and that's why another reason I made the film is because we can't have a collapse. I don't want a collapse. In an uncontrolled collapse, we will not only do terrible things to each other, but we'll do terrible things to every remaining living thing on Earth rather than perish. And that's the worst case scenario for both humans and the planet. So we've got to have a controlled ending of growth and a controlled reversal of growth, or we're not going to make it, and the planet's not going to make it. But if we think about the context, none of us like oil. None of us like the fact we're addicted to oil. But the reality is, in 1800, just before we got onto our main addiction here, humans used 5 terawatts of energy. By 1970, we'd gone up to about 70,000 terawatts approximately. That's 5 times 70,000. That's many orders of magnitude of increase in those 170 years. But in the last 50 years, we've went from 70,000 to 150,000. We've more than doubled. And so that gap between 5,000 terawatts from basically bioenergy and wind, natural sources back in 1800 to, what is that? I mean, 100 times, 1,000 times the energy use that we had back then. That mountain of increase of everything human propelled by energy, that's what frightens me to death. And so, yes, we can say, oh, yes, oil, it's a very bad sign when things began to fall apart like this. And we've got this one chance, I think this is a calm before the storm. This isn't the storm. And this calm is our chance to figure this out. Now, to figure out that the only way out of this is to end growth and reverse it. And lo and behold, the planet has given us the experience of ending growth. It's painful, but we're still all alive. We did it in a week to save ourselves. Can we do it in a month to save the planet? Can we do it in a year to save the entire Earth? That's the question before us. Not when are we going to all buy solar panels or buy a new Tesla.
So define growth, because this is something that every night on the news, Wall Street, everything is all about, did you make more than yesterday? Did you make more profit? Did you make more stuff? It's all about, and companies are judged on whether or not, it's not good enough. Let's say that Apple had a record year last year in the sales, I'm just making this up, of iPhones. I don't think it was actually a record year, but let's just say it was. That's not good enough for Wall Street. If they just do the same this year, what would be wrong if they just sold as many this year as last year? Why do they need to sell more? They had a massive profit that they made. Why is more better? But there's something about our thinking here, Jeff. And I'm not talking about economists necessarily. I'm talking about just the average person feeling that growth is good, more is better. And if I go and buy that extra thing, whatever that thing is, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, I'm also putting people to work, and people are get to have a job. And I'm keeping the money circulating in the economy. This is before everybody was laid off and shut down. But it seems like if we come out of this, I think we will come out of this, but when we come out of it, God forbid we go back to this old way. But just explain this to people in terms of the necessity of growth in order to get the approval, whether it's of Wall Street or the media or whatever.
Well, I think one thing that's apparent is that growth is not necessarily built into who we are as humans. I think we've killed off any culture, tribe, people that have attempted to live simply and sustainably. We've destabilized them, whether that's in North America, Africa, Australia, Polynesia. That's the story of the current culture we have. It's being victorious by being willing to exploit the environment and to continuously grow. We've kind of overridden the non-growing cultures. But the other part of that is I think we have a profound illusion about what wealth is. And that's one of the things that enables the story of permanent growth. Ozzie, didn't we talk about in the early days of working together, talk a lot about what was the meaning of money? It seemed like unclear to people what money actually was.
Yeah, and when you think about it, what is money? Like, it's what we think of as monetary currencies ultimately just represent a promise to extract natural material when it comes down to it. And in fact, you can look at the financial economy as just being a way of coordinating the story of dividing up obligations and benefits of extracting natural material. Highly unequal way of dividing it up. And all wealth ultimately depends on that flow of energy in the form of fuel and fertilizers and labor and so on. And coming back to the issue of growth is actually the opposite of what we think of it, I think. Because as we grow, what that means is that every person on the planet gets a smaller piece of the pie on average. And so we grow larger and larger and larger, there's going to be less and less available per capita. And then when you add that to the unequal distribution of wealth and access to natural material extraction, the situation becomes even more unsettling.
Yeah, and certainly I think when we talk about almost 8 billion people, that alone is extremely unsustainable. But, each of us in America, on average, because some people, again, don't have much here. Many people don't have much, but on average, we are probably 1,000 times, consuming 1,000 times more than people like in Somalia, and maybe 75% more than most people around the world. So our footprint as a human is more like an elephant or a Tyrannosaurus Rex than a person living in a less quote unquote well-off country. Which, by the way, we always call them developing countries. Like, where people used to ride bicycles, they're developing into electric cars and airplanes and gasoline cars. That's what we consider development. I think we've got the wrong measure of what happiness and human well-being comes from.
So in this moment we're in, there's, obviously, Jeff and Ozzie, there's a lot of despair and there's a lot of confusion and people don't know what's next. They can't even get a test. They can't even know whether or not they've even had the virus. They don't know. It seems like it's hard for people to wrap their heads around these other problems we have when we can't even get a face mask or a pair of gloves. And we're all so deathly afraid that either we're going to get sick or somebody's going to get sick or somebody we know is going to die. And I've been putting a lot of thought into this because, and I guess when I suggested to you guys that we do this film today, that we actually release a major motion picture, a feature-length film that has been years in the making, and all of our plans of how we were going to do this and theatrical and distribution and all this, and just realizing that now is the time all of us need to be talking about not just the virus, but everything about this. And I read an op-ed that you wrote, Jeff, that's I think going to be appearing sometime soon here about this, and like why now and why should we be? What's the connection here between the coronavirus and all the things that you're talking about in this film in terms of how we save the planet and how we connect ourselves to what's going on. And I know what a lot of it means. I can tell just from the mail I get and from this podcast, people have friggin' had it. And I know, Jeff and Ozzie, people don't want to go back. They don't want to go back to the old ways we were living. And there's no more important time than to have this discussion than right now.
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep a vision that, are we any happier than people were in previous generations? Are we any happier than tribal people or simple living cultures? I don't think so. I think having been a social worker for a while, I think the level of stress and mental illness and addiction, it's been going up and up and up. So I think there's, if we look in the mirror, we've got a problem with even really enjoying and being happy with all of this stuff. and all this growth. And so when I think about, I don't like being trapped here, but when I think about more of us staying home and getting to know each other and growing things in our own yards and coming to wonder how we can bring back the pollinators and the butterflies and the birds and, asking a different set of questions. I think the virus has taught us, I think some part of us knows that it's ludicrous to think that we're going to buy our way out of this with millions of solar panels and electric cars. The coronavirus is teaching us that out of the blue are going to come things from the planet, and that we've got to change our ways completely, not just piecemeal try and build out some technology that keeps our lifestyles going. I see, what is the coronavirus? What has the coronavirus really taught us? Aside from the fact that we didn't buy enough toilet paper. Or maybe for me, it's taught me to scream at the orange man on the TV and then just turn the TV off because I can't take it.
Right.
But the coronavirus, I really feel it's the planet's immune response against us. We're a single species kind of overrunning and decimating an entire living planet. We killed off the predators that would keep us limited long ago. We killed off the competitors like the Neanderthals. And what does nature have left? Nature has disease. And so where did the virus come from? It came from people abusing ecosystems, often desperate people who didn't have enough to eat, killing bats, pangolins, other endangered species. And out of those damaged ecosystems and stressed species, and by the way, research shows that stressed species emit diseases to humans. That's where Ebola came from too. That from those stressed animals into a very dense population of humans in China, Wuhan, China, stuffed together up to 12 to a room in a city of 12 million people to make our stuff with low pollution controls in a very polluted environment. Into that kind of brew came this virus. Then the virus discovered jet airplanes and traveled the planet. It got into another dense setting in New York City. But now it's spreading through the countryside. There were just 3 in the last week in this county where I live, where there's only a few thousand people. 3 cases here. So I think the virus arose from one of these discontinuities that we weren't expecting, where just suddenly something appears. What's going to happen when the pollinators finish collapsing?
Right. When the bees are gone, what does life look like then?
It's not just climate change harming the bees. Let's just be clear about that. There's all the toxins that we put into the air. There's the radio waves. There's the trees have been dying across the planet. We've churned up millions of acres for agriculture, but we've churned up millions of acres we've churned up millions more acres recently for biofuels. And the acreage that we keep plowing up keeps increasing. So what do we think is going to happen to the butterflies and the bees? So the movie isn't just about renewable energy, and it's not even really about the state of the planet. It's about so many things that's kind of hard to, a lot of the film deals with the fact that not only is this, that we've been a lot of the movie deals with the reality that capitalism and our corporate masters and the bankers and industrialists who run the economy have taken advantage of our fears and gotten their tentacles around the environmental movement in lots of ways, both direct and subtle. And they have helped narrow the story to climate change is the only concern. And of course, it's very real and very deadly, but they have helped narrow that story down to just climate change because it yields up, we can solve it by building technology.
Right.
And I think that's why they've kind of captured the environmental movement. And it's very depressing today to read. Actually, I don't know if it's depressing. It makes me angry. It's just the Earth Day thing after Earth Day thing. It's just all about climate and renewables. I just got an email from the Union of Concerned Scientists about Earth Day, and it's from their climate person. Well, where's their whole Earth person? Where is their ecology person? Where's their whole planet person? We don't have that anymore. We have the climate desk. We have again, climate scares the hell out of me too, climate change. But we've narrowed it down to this one story: climate change plus renewables equals worse saved. And just so happens to be a giant profit center for industry. Ozzie, you want to add anything to that?
Oh, well, I mean, this is how your film works, and it sneaks up on you, and it starts out with what the kinds of things you just discussed. It starts off with, "Wow, holy crap! Is that can't possibly be happening? No way!" And then you're only halfway through the film, and then the whole second half, Michael, it's transformative. It's kind of, it takes that understanding, and then it widens the scope, and Jeff opens it up, and he opens up this way of viewing the world and our space, our place in it, in the time that we're in right now, in a way that I've just never seen anyone do before, or even come close to doing. And that's what I really appreciate about it.
No, I know. There's nothing like this. I mean, it's shocking on one level, but then it's a good shock because sometimes you want that bucket of water over your head to wake you up. And this is, I hope, will be one of these seminal films that when we make things better, we'll look back and say there was this moment, and there were people trying to say, wait a minute, hold on. And there was this film, and this film was trying to say, it's not that we're barking up the wrong tree. It's not even the tree. It's to just keep talking about climate change and not deal with the larger issue that it's a part of. I don't know, how did this happen where climate got carved off into and segregated from everything else that we need to be dealing with to save the planet, to save ourselves. And we've forgotten about all this other, the fact that there are too many people consuming too much in a kind of in a sort of a drunken spree.
Well, one answer is around 2006, Al Gore released a film called An Inconvenient Truth, which many of us cheered on because we're like, oh my God, finally somebody is talking about climate change. We're all worried about climate change. But little did the public know that Al Gore had already started an investment fund to profit from the story climate change plus renewables equals worse saved. He had already started a sustainability fund. And so I think most of us that were worried about climate change and were well-intended just slowly got pulled into this seductive story. And I think that's what got funded. And that's the journalism that got funded. And that also made us feel like, oh, we've got an easy solution. So I think it was a seductive story that we were pulled into at kind of the turning point with Clinton Gore. They began to invite, you couldn't have a meeting of environmentalists. It was filled with the CEO of Walmart, the CEO of this bank. In fact, most of the meetings I saw on video from that time, weren't they mostly the leaders of industry, Ozzie?
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, when you look at the various climate news organizations, there's one called Climate Desk that you mentioned earlier. There's also the Mother Nature Network, Climate Central, Global Possibilities, Inside Climate News. These are all funded by kind of the titans of industry. Rockefeller money. Climate Central is funded by Northrop Grumman, armaments manufacturer, and Google. Quartz is funded by Chevron and Boeing and Cadillac, and so and that limits the kinds of questions that those news organizations even think to ask. And that's really the fundamental issue, is that if we're not asking the right questions, it doesn't matter what answers we get.
Right. I mean, there's this group, treehugger.com, and you point out in the film, after doing some research, it's funded by a company that is funded by the Koch brothers, or now Koch brother. But it's like, wow, how deep into this are they? And what kind of wool has been pulled over the eyes of the public? And when you bring up like the Rockefellers and others, you have to, start asking the question, amongst documentary filmmakers, who's taken this money? Who has taken money from funds that get their money from the fossil fuel industry, from the very things that are causing this destruction? And see, I've just opened up a door here and gone somewhere that we're not supposed to go. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know and some people would say, well, maybe some of the foundations, maybe like the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, they're not in fossil fuels anymore. They're now doing good work, and they've reinvested the money. And what I say to that is, really? So if I go rob my neighbor's house and burn it down and take the money and put it into a restaurant, it's clean money now. It's all good, right? We're all good. So, this insidious, and I don't think anybody who writes for these publications are not well-intended, and they do good work often, and they write about things that we all care about. But as Ozzie said, they're limited without even being aware of it. They're not funded to ask the larger questions about our entire human presence. They're not funded to challenge the idea of growth. They're not funded to challenge capitalism itself. They're funded to tell the stories that are acceptable to the funders. And, we personally experienced what happens when you approach people with money and you challenge people with money. They don't want to fund you somehow. So, but I wanted to say that both of you are very kind in your comments on the film, but I think one of the things that makes it unique, that was my intention, and I hope it comes across. And again, we're talking about particulars in the film, but I hope that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, because one of the things I wanted to do was to provide a perspective of looking down on ourselves from the outside a little bit. Even though the movie follows my story, I've tried to ask the questions in terms of, if you just step back and look at this, what are the questions nobody's asking? And what do we see?
Asking or answering, yeah.
So we both love the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the films that asks these holy smokes questions about who we are, where we came from, and where we're going. There's a book called Ishmael about a telepathic gorilla. I know it sounds corny, but it's a very good book where the gorilla is talking with a human from the gorilla's perspective about what we humans have done and challenging all of the humans' self-perceptions about what it is to be human. And so I think that's one of the things that's kind of the background of the film, but I think that's also one of the things we need to learn to do, is to take a perspective from outside of ourselves, from looking at our species from the outside. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, this is a great book. I just want to say Ishmael, but Jeff, I usually tell people to read it. If I tell them it's about a talking gorilla or a telepathic gorilla,
I know. I didn't read it for years because of that. Yeah.
No, I know exactly right. Neither did I. And then I read it, and I'm like, so many people told me 20 years ago, to read this, and it's one of the great books. So there you go. Don't be put off by the gorilla with superpowers. But I think I just want to. I want to just, I don't know if I want to warn people, but I want to tell you that when you watch this film of Jeff's Planet of the Humans, that it's going to rock your world a bit. It's going to tell you some things about, for instance, the Sierra Club, about Mike Bloomberg and his environmental plan and the money that he puts around into these groups or whatever. This is generally, when we talk about the environment, we don't talk about capitalism, and we don't talk about greed, and we don't talk about how easy it is to buy certain things with the money that the rich have. But we need to get into this. We need to save ourselves. We need to save this planet. We need to prepare ourselves for the next thing we don't see coming. And I don't want to wait until I'm over my despair over the fact that I haven't been out of the apartment in 43 days. And I know a lot of people listening to this are feeling this way, but there's really no better time than right now. Unless you're one of the essential workers, the people that are actually having to stock the grocery shelves, work the pharmacies, be in the hospitals, keep the buses going so people can get to work at the hospitals, keep our lights on, all of that. God bless you. Thank you for that. And you have no time probably right now to even think about what we're talking about. But I know a lot of people, Jeff, are very, very upset that we didn't even assume something like this would be coming down the block toward all of us. And your film says, well, folks, that may not be all, but we have a chance to do something about it. But it isn't what they're going to be talking about tomorrow on Earth Day. You're right. It's going to be so many corporate sponsors of Earth Day, number one. Jeff shows this in the film. And so much talk about it's not the thing that we need right now. And frankly, you had your time to do it and to turn things around, and it hasn't turned around. And I don't know why we would still listen to people who, for whatever their intentions, I assume most of them are well-meaning, tried to do things in these 50 years to save this planet. It didn't work. The planet is dying. The planet is coming apart. And we don't have time to wait anymore to see what the next new techie invention that you're going to give us that's somehow going to save us. We need new leadership. We need new organizations. We need young people taking over. We need 1 million Gretas. We need to confront a system of greed, of profit motive that is holding us back from doing the things that we need to do to save this environment. And it's all there in your film. It's not a long film. It's 98 minutes, I think. But in 98 minutes, you pack this all in. You tell us the things that we haven't heard from anybody. It is, I know the research you've done on this film. I know how many years it's taken you. Ozzie and I have been there by your side. Everything in this film is been thoroughly vetted, and it we don't put anything out unless it's the truth. And this truth is a tough one to swallow. But I encourage people to go to my YouTube channel. You can watch it for free for the next month. Pass it around. Tell people about it. We're going to do part 2 of this podcast tomorrow. But tomorrow we'll do a few. We're going to slightly different things with Earth Day happening. Mainly, we want to hear from you and others. We want to continue this discussion, but we'd like you to watch the film first. Watch the film, and then send me an email at my email address, mike@michaelmoore.com. Leave a comment on the podcast site here. Leave a voice message on the podcast platform here. If you go to Anchor and do that, we want to hear from you. You can go to Jeff's website, planetofthehumans.org. And is it .org? Is that right?
.com.
Oh, it's .com. I'm sorry. planetofthehumans.com. And leave Jeff a message. You can read more about the film. And I'm going to be on Stephen Colbert tonight to talk about this film. This is Tuesday, April 21st, on the eve of the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. I will be Stephen Colbert's guest tonight, so tune in to that. There will be other appearances by myself, Jeff, and Ozzie on various TV shows, podcasts, etc. We'll keep you informed of that. But we'll be back tomorrow with part 2 of this. But we want you to watch the film. So you go to the Michael Moore YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, Michael Moore, and it's the first thing that pops up on there. if you look on the podcast on the platform site here, on the description of this podcast, we'll have the link there. You could just click and start watching the movie. It's just 98 minutes, as I said. Because we'd love your feedback and we want to start this discussion. We don't want to wait. I don't want to wait for the next shitty thing that's heading our way. We've already seen enough. And I personally have had enough. And we can't stay with the same game plan that we on the left, or we who care about this environment, have fought for this environment our entire lives. This movie, I'm hoping is the thing that will ignite the spark, that will get this discussion going and get even more and new action taking place. Not going for the same old methods, but a different way to attack this. And we'll suggest some things tomorrow. But before we leave this episode, Basil's over there helping us with the mix. And thank you, by the way. Basil is the executive producer of this incredible podcast. This is episode number 71. We have done 71 of these, most of them during this pandemic. So thank you for everybody who's been listening and participating in this. But before we go, I just wanted to turn the mic over to each of you one more time to, if there was one thing that you wanted to leave people with before they go and watch the film now, something to keep in mind as they're watching the film, what would that be?
Well, for me, it would be.
And Ozzie, go first, Ozzie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to people, this is more of like a logistical thing, but I'm just warning you, you're probably going to want to talk to someone after you watch this film. I can't speak actually after I watch the film, and it happens to me every time I watch it. It takes a little bit of time, but then I want to talk to someone. And so, I'm going to be watching it with friends remotely, but we're all going to kind of click play at the same time. So if you have a few friends that you feel comfortable watching it with, that you'll be happy that you did that after the film's over.
Yeah. And first of all, I want to thank Basil for keeping us on track here, helping make this happen. And this film could not have happened without you, Michael. I mean, I really appreciate your support. This has been a very enlightening and exhilarating and difficult process. It's not easy to dive into the dark side. And Ozzie, too, you've been here for years now. I think I told you, we'll finish this up in a few months. Come in and help me. It's been a number of years. And I can't say how much I love both of you and how much I appreciate your dedication in doing this. We've all just volunteered and made it happen. And our editor, Angela Vargas, who's sitting back there waiting for any last minute things we've got to put out as far as media. But really, there's two things I want to say. You can decide which one is the main point. But this film, in a very vague way, I never wanted this to be overt, but this film, in a general way, is a callback to those of us and to a generation that got a lot of stuff right. We just lost our way. We knew that living simply and living closer to nature and loving nature as we love ourselves, we knew that was the right path. The Earth Day generation. We knew that capitalism and industrialism weren't going to save us. We knew that partnering with bankers wasn't going to save us. We knew that we had to have, fewer people living, a good life. And we knew that we had to take care of everybody. When we say fewer people, there's many people that need to be taken care of that have nothing on this planet. And so that we had, and maybe still do have, a lot of the right values in the Earth Day generation, and that were present in Earth Day. A lot of victories were made. And so, as often happens, movements lose their way. And this is really a callback to where we started. And I think it's coming. This is a time of great danger and great fear. The other thing I would leave everyone with is there's still blue whales. There are still monarch butterflies. There's still a handful of redwoods. There's only a few of everything, but they're still here. And this is our chance to get it right. When the plague came into Europe, when was that? In the 1400s?
Yeah.
The Black Death came in. It wiped out half the population. It decimated the economy. It decimated everything. And it's not an accident that came after the collapse of the Roman Empire, who had devastated the forests and the environment all the way from northern Africa, all the way up to Ireland. And so after that collapse, Europe reformed. We got the Renaissance. We got science. We got medicine.
The Enlightenment.
Democracy. So if we would ever just stop and say, aren't we really, really fucking lucky to be where we're at and to have green grass outside and things that are going to grow and feed us? We just have to find the right balance and the off switch. And this virus is giving us a chance to do that. I hope we can do it without any more deaths. We've got to do that. But if we don't get this right, it's going to keep coming. But I guess where I was digressing from is this really is a tremendous opportunity, the time we're in, to become the species we should be. So
I agree with that. And it's been a real pleasure to work with you and Ozzie on this. As you said, this has been a labor of love on all three of our parts. I can safely say that none of us have taken a paycheck or anything for this. We have worked on this for years because we are so committed to turning this around, and we think it can happen. We need to start this discussion. The movie can do that. It's one of the best documentaries I've seen in years, and it may blow your mind a little bit, but in a good way. It's a voice from a film and a voice from somebody I've known since high school. We are of Flint, Michigan, folks, and we have now another filmmaker from Flint in the form of Jeff Gibbs. And Ozzie, where'd you grow up, in Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids over there in the West?
Kalamazoo, but I lived in Flint for many years.
That's right, you did. I forgot about that.
If that counts.
That's right. So
you once said it's up to people from Flint to help fix the world because we helped build one of the things that was destroyed the world. So
yes, the General Motors was invented in Flint, Michigan. The internal combustion engine is our doing, and the least we can do is try to fix this planet and all the damage, not only that has caused, but all the things that you point out in this film in terms of our overconsumption and our inability to confront the profit motive that is working hand in hand to destroy us. And I know that many of you have some free time today, so I encourage you to please watch this. It's free. It's on my YouTube channel. You just type in the search on Michael Moore YouTube. It's right there. It'll come right up. And it's called Planet of the Humans. And we're very excited to release this, to do our it's the Beyonce drop. It's the method of when Beyonce drops a new album and doesn't tell anybody about it. It just suddenly appears. Well, about an hour ago, we just put this up online for free for all of you. And not that we're Beyonce. Let's not cross certain lines here. We are just from Flint, but we care so desperately about these issues and what we're all going through right now. And we invite you to partake in this gift that we're giving you, and let us know what you think. And we'll be back at you tomorrow with part 2 of this. And hopefully we can include some of your comments and things that you email or put on the podcast platform for us to listen to or to read. So on behalf of Jeff Gibbs, the filmmaker, and the producer, Ozzie Zehner, this is Michael Moore. You've been listening to Rumble, and this is my sincere invitation to you to begin the Rumble with us on this Planet of the Humans. Go watch it right now. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Ozzie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
See everybody tomorrow.